Okay, so we'll set our intention. All that means is to connect with the breath, be present, rest in our fundamental awareness, and evoke compassion, loving kindness for all sentient beings, and make the aspiration that whatever good we do, it benefits sentient beings, and whatever practice we do, it's moving us towards total enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. So we'll just take like 30 seconds or something to quietly set our intention, and then we'll begin the seminar on joy. Okay. Okay. So the seminar today is called The Path of Joy. It is about a very simple practice that, despite its simplicity, is quite profound. So I'll do a little bit of information and background first about the Path of Joy, and then we'll go through how to do it, and then we'll do it. So we'll do a little session towards the end. I'll have a break in the middle of this seminar so that we can have water, refresh ourselves, stretch if we need to, and then we'll resume the second part after that little break, about an hour in. So if you're familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, you will have heard this phrase, fresh as the Dakini's warm breath. That's a phrase that's used to describe a practice or teaching that has a very short transmission lineage. So from a particular master to a student to another student, like that. Most of the teachings in Buddhism have very long transmission lineages going all the way back to the Buddha. But in Tibetan Buddhism, we have some innovation. And so we have some transmission lineages that are 1,000 years old, some transmission lineages, such as the Dzogchen, that are only, a couple of hundred years old at this point. This one has a very, very short transmission lineage, which is from Togden Amtrin, Kapje Togden Amtrin, who was a yogi, or Togden, which means realized one, of the Kampagar monastery tradition in exile in India in Kashijong now. So arose in his Dharmakaya mind. He transmitted it then to Jamyang Tenphel, who's my teaching partner, and Jamyang Tenphel then transmitted that to me. We're not aware of anyone else receiving this teaching. However, I am aware that Sutrayana Rinpoche, who also was a student of Togden Amtrin's, he does actually commonly teach on joy. So there's a possible transmission there that we don't know about. So that's where it begins with Togden Amtrin, who is a Drukpa Kagyu yogi at Togden. Togden is a title rarely given, which means realized one, which means he recognized the true nature of mind and abides in that state permanently. He's a white robe wearer, but also a monk. He died in 2005. So that's where it begins, and that's how it comes to here. So I'll give a little bit of sort of background, and then we'll a bit more information about how it fits in the scheme of the Buddhist path, and then we'll talk about how we do it. So most of you would have heard about the Four Immeasurables, and they are in no particular order: joy, love, compassion, and equanimity or evenness. These are states, mind states, or qualities that are considered essential to enlightenment. So that means without love, there's no enlightenment. Without compassion, there's no enlightenment. Without joy, there's no enlightenment. Without equanimity or evenness, there's no enlightenment. It is not possible. So these qualities are very important. Joy is also one of the, I'm not going to go over too many lists because they're not really important, but joy is also one of the 7 factors of awakening, which are these 7, again, qualities that need to be there for us to awaken to our true nature, to become enlightened. So it is very important. So the four immeasurables, and joy in particular, they are in all of the Buddhist vehicles. So the Sutrayana, which the Buddha first taught, it is there. The Mahayana, which is the second turning of the wheel, it is there. And in the Vajrayana, it is there also. And likewise in Dzogchen. In Dzogchen, also joy is very important. So for those of you who don't know, in Sutra and Mahayana, we abstain from negative qualities, the opposite of the love, equanimity, joy, and compassion. We abstain from their opposites, and we actively cultivate love, compassion, joy, equanimity. So that's the attitude of the Sutrayana and the Mahayana vehicles. In the Vajrayana, we transform the negative opposites of love, joy, equanimity, and compassion into those qualities, which tells us what? It tells us that the negative are adventitious, temporary, passing, fleeting, but these qualities are actually what's underneath or behind or through. So that's the difference. In Sutrayana, we tend to abstain from negative qualities. In the Mahayana, we actively cultivate positive qualities. In the Vajrayana, we transform negative qualities into positive qualities. And in Dzogchen, we rest in the natural state which has these qualities. So at the bottom of Dzogchen, we're not trying to create something that is considered to be not there. We're simply resting or leaning into a natural state that's already there, that's part of our heart. So that's kind of general overview of vehicles. So the path of joy is ultimately, when we get to the Dzogchen sort of state, joy is actually the natural radiance of our true nature. So it arises from the true nature of all. It naturally. So there's no contrivance needed. There's no fabrication needed. Nothing needs to happen. All we need to do is get out of the way of that natural radiance and allow it to shine. So this practice is a shortcut. So if all Dharma practice leads to states of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, all Dharma practice does, that is the natural outcome of Dharma practice. Love, joy, equanimity, compassion. But it takes a very long time of concerted, consistent meditation for that to happen. This practice is a shortcut. So what it does is it uses a kind of an external method to awaken the internal truth of our nature. And the external method is to evoke joy in a certain sort of a way. So I just have a little bit of a sidebar here. So the reason usually when we're talking about the Four Immeasurables, we would start, say, with equanimity, to get in a place of sort of evenness, to treat everybody the same, to understand that we're all equal, and then progress through them. But actually, that is difficult. To be in a true state of equanimity, a true state of equalness with others is very difficult. Likewise, true compassion, true selfless compassion, quite difficult. Love also, that's not tainted by attachment, it's difficult. However, joy is quite easy. Joy, perhaps because it's more fundamental to our nature, it's more core to who we are and what we are in our true nature. It rises quite simply and easily. In an ordinary sense, joy rises when we watch something funny, when we see a puppy dog running around playing, when we're sitting in nature, when we're doing something that we really enjoy, no matter what that is. It rises quite easily. It's quite uninhibited. So that's why it makes sense to start with joy, because joy is easy, you know, and Dharma should not be, despite what we're often told, difficult. You know, we should start in a way that will give us a sense of momentum, progress, you know, feeling of change. We feel changed. If we start with equanimity, it could take us many years before we start to really feel fundamentally equal to others. However, you know, with the joy practice, very shortly, months, you know, you start to feel joy very easily, you know, non-clinging, non-grasping, not mundane or ordinary joy, but this subtle, open delight, you know, I suppose another way to say it, in our nature and in our experience and in the Dharma, you know, and that is a fuel. That means that we can do the other things, meditate, treat people nicely, be kind, be loving. Those things happen more readily, you know. We look forward to sitting down to meditate. We look forward to being kind, being loving, being compassionate. You know, there's less grasping resistance, self-clinging resistance to that kind of action in the world. And then, of course, because joy is this more fundamental thing, this very core radiance of our true nature, it gives rise naturally over time to the other immeasurables. So in this order, joy first, then love, then compassion, then equanimity, which is almost kind of like the reverse of the order that we're taught, you know, how to develop them. There are reasons for this, you know, both is fine, both is good. But this one, I think for Westerners, and I think for people who are, you know, have a quite simple practice and who are not interested in sort of like more complicated processes, this works very, very well. Because also joy is a natural relaxant, you know, and the natural state can't be grabbed, chased, dragged out. It arises naturally when we're relaxed, you know. Joy relaxes the body, relaxes the mind, our natural state rises without effort. You know, it's really quite amazing how quickly and how profoundly we change just through this, you know. It's really kind of amazing. The other thing about the joy practice is something that we were taught, what Jamyang was taught, Jamyang has passed on to me, is that this practice is particularly good for those who don't have a teacher, don't have a guru, or are wary of the idea of a guru. At this time, that's common. Many people are very wary of the idea of teachers altogether. This practice doesn't need a teacher, you know. I mean, when combined with Guru Yoga, which is, you know, the heart of Vajrayana is Guru Yoga, the heart of Dzogchen is Guru Yoga. When combined with Guru Yoga, it's profoundly powerful. But, you know, you don't need to do anything other than this. And for those who are not even Buddhist, you know, who can't actually sit in meditation because they have, you know, trauma or chronic pain or other things that prevent them from sitting in meditation, this can be done just on its own, and it will have benefit, you know. So it's really quite profound. It's really quite interesting how simple it is, and yet deep, profound, transformative. You know, it's a really kind of amazing thing. I'm giving it a hard sell because so hoping you all try it, you know, and so, you know, it's not hard to try. It's not hard at all. It's very simple. It's relaxing to do. It's not a task, a chore. Okay, so I think that's enough of kind of general information. I will therefore talk about how we do it. Just making sure I've covered everything I think I have. So it's profoundly simple. We simply choose with meditation, all meditation has an object. Likewise, this practice has an object. In meditation, our object is either, if our eyes are open, we're looking at something, looking into space. If our eyes are closed, our object is normally our breath. Actually, if our eyes are open, our object can be our breath as well. In the Mahamudra tradition and the Dzogchen tradition, often there's a quite simple object chosen, like a stick or a pebble, because that can be cast away easily. There's no attachment involved in that. And then when you no longer need an object in your meditation, you can just cast it away. All meditation requires an object. So with Vipassana, the object is thought itself, also body sensations. So the object in the joy practice is whatever inspires or evokes or gives rise to some subtle feeling of joy. Now, it can be anything, but it should not be something that agitates the mind. I know that many people are very much in love with their phones, but a phone is not a good idea because it agitates the mind. It makes us think about what's going on, what we might be missing, fear of missing out. So, and obviously like TV shows, movies, things like that, these stimulate the mind and actually get us out of the now. So it needs to be something that evokes a subtle, simple, kind of relaxing joy. For most people, that will be a natural thing. So a flower, the ocean, sitting in a forest, that's mine. I am a massive tree fan. I love to be around trees and among trees. So being in a forest is very joyful for me. But it can be really anything. Traditionally, in Tibet, the object chosen by Dzogchen practitioners was the sky, because the sky is a metaphor for the true nature of mind, boundless, open, luminous. So that's why in the Dzogchen tradition, two main practices for 1,000 years, were sky gazing and Guru Yoga, because both of those awaken sense of openness, surrender, relaxation, or these kinds of things. So the sky is a good one, but it doesn't have to be the sky. It can be really ultimately anything at all. And then rather than think, this gives me joy, we simply observe. In the same way that if we're meditating with our eyes open, we'll just gently gaze into space in front of us. We simply gently gaze at our object and allow that joy to rise naturally without kind of trying to make it happen. At first, it will be very subtle, maybe not even perceptible, but just don't worry about that. It will happen because this is the thing. Joy is our natural state. It will happen. There is no doubt. You don't need to get all hung up about making it happen. It will just happen. We just need to relax. The more relaxed we are, the more it will happen, more quickly it will happen. And then when the joy rises, we simply feel it, so that it needs to be felt, physically felt. Be aware of how it feels in the body. And we just rest in it. So our awareness is placed very gently on the joy. Very just resting with it, and then it will naturally grow. So usually people will feel some kind of sensation in their heart. It's not necessarily true for everyone, but most people will feel some kind of sensation in the heart. And then if you just rest your awareness gently there on that feeling, it will grow. Because when we rest our awareness on the object, all that is sort of interfering, getting in the way, distracting us, diminishes. And so that will seemingly grow. But all that's really happening is that we're becoming more aware of what is underneath all the thinking and feeling and sensing. That joy is already there, and we're becoming more aware of it, and it will seemingly grow. So to begin with, it's always wise to begin gently. So to begin with, we choose our object. Also, a lot of Vajrayana practitioners use a picture of their Lama, their teacher. So that's an option too if you want to. So you just sit with that joy feeling for about 10 minutes, and then you have a little break of like a minute or something, and then you go into Shamatha meditation. Shamatha meditation is just awareness on the breath, you know. It's a particular posture that we use, which is very powerful posture, which is eyes half lidded, so you're sort of looking downwards like that. Mouth is slightly ajar, tongue is up behind the top teeth, hands are palms down on our knees or thighs. Our legs can be either flat on the floor, our feet flat on the floor, or crossed underneath us, but if our feet are flat on the floor, our ankles need to be crossed. And that particular posture is really quite powerful because it stabilizes our energy, calms everything down. And then we just sit in shamatha with our awareness very gently on our breathing. And that can be, I mean, probably preferably on the entire experience of breathing. So not necessarily where it enters and leaves the body, but just the entire experience of breathing. And just our awareness very gently on that. So the sort of metaphor that they traditionally use is like a snowflake landing on a lake. That's how sort of light and, you know, gentle this awareness is. And then we just sit in shamatha for 10 minutes. That's it. That's enough. And over time, we can increase the shamatha part of the practice. Sit, enjoy for 10 minutes, a little teeny weeny break, then into shamatha. And we can extend that, you know, to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you can do it for, without it becoming something you're pursuing. Always relaxed, you know, always restful. There is striving will cut off our ability to connect with our true nature quicker than anything. Wanting to accomplish stuff, be a great yogi, you know, learn the chudram, learn to play the kangli, learn all of the complex rituals. All that sort of striving will cut it off quicker than anything. If it's fun for you to do those things, do them. I'm not saying don't do them. I'm just saying chasing after things like accomplishment in meditation, getting really good at the rituals, that is striving, and that will cut the experience of true nature off. So this is all about being relaxed and gentle and friendly with ourselves. And it's very, very simple, and it will work very, very quickly. And joy will be present then whenever we sit down to meditate. Our entire shamatha experience will be permeated by joy. That will give rise naturally to love, compassion, equanimity. You know, these things will happen naturally without striving, without trying, and we will transform. You know, the sign of a true practitioner is not the ability to, you know, do a chud ritual or, you know all of the mantras, know the names of all of the meditational deities. You know, that's not the sign of a true practitioner. The sign of a true practitioner is that they're loving, that they're kind, that their heart is completely open. You know, the thing about joy is it completely opens the heart. And Dzogchen cannot be accomplished without the heart being completely open. It is impossible. With any kind of clinging or striving or wanting to achieve something, it is not possible. So, and if you're not aware of what Dzogchen is or not interested in Dzogchen, that's totally cool, because you actually don't need to know any of that for this to be profoundly transformative, you know? So that is how it works. And then over time, you will be able to drop the joy part. So the joy practice, the choosing of an object to evoke joy, is a method. You know, eventually that method, it will no longer be needed, because every time you sit down to do your meditation, every single time you sit down to do any kind of practice, joy will arise naturally. Joy will arise naturally in all of our interactions with others. When we look out the window, joy will rise naturally. At that point, there's no longer any need to do the practice. You can do it for fun, that's fine, but you can drop it. You can just drop it. And then the other thing about this process is that, you know, a joyful mind is a quiet and calm mind. And stillness and spaciousness of mind are a natural evolution of that. So the joy feeds into the shamatha by sort of calming and quietening the mind. The shamatha helps us to connect with the joy more quickly. It's very reciprocal. So having said that, if you have trauma or pain or some other reason why sitting meditation is not something you want to do or can do, the joy practice on its own will create relaxed state, spaciousness of mind, and there's nothing wrong with that. On its own, that's fine. So that's it. It's really very simple. I feel like people are waiting for the fireworks moment. There isn't one. It's a very simple practice, but it's profoundly beneficial, profoundly important. So we'll have maybe a little bit of a break, a few minutes maybe, so people can have some water or whatever, and then we'll do a practice. We'll actually run through the practice. Actually, we'll come back and we'll run through the practice, and then I'll allow people to ask questions. So we'll have a 5-minute break starting now. So I'll pause the recording and then we'll come back. So just water break and then we'll return. Okay, so we're back from our break. So before we do a little bit of practice, I'll go over I've got some notes here from Jamyang Tenphel, who received this practice from Togden Amtrin. So I'll just read them out because it's actually quite interesting for people who are practicing the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So those of you who are in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you will know that in Vajrayana, there are these practices called Salung, Tumo, or inner heat, inner fire, Trulkor, which is an interesting word, which I think translates something like magical machine, something like that, or magical wheel. So those sorts of practices are about stabilizing the energy in the body's subtle energy. So in the Vajrayana system, we have a subtle architecture to our bodies, which is also in the Chinese medicine system. You'll know they're very actually similar. So we have chakras, meridians, etc. So in Tibetan, that's Sa, Lung, Jigle. There's sort of winds, channels, and drops. So, and those practices, which are yogas, physical practices, are about, sometimes I talk about purifying these energies, but really in Vajrayana, we probably shouldn't talk about purifying in that way. We're actually transforming. So it's a different thing. So that's meant to stabilize the energy of the body, to enable mind states, deeper mind states to emerge more readily. So in terms of this practice, the joy practice, this is notes from Jamyang. He says, in terms of the subtle body, joy in the heart relaxes the winds and channels and allows great bliss to arise in our heart center. So those of you who are aware of Tumo, generates bliss. The bliss can dissolve the dualistic mind, in fact does, and allows us to rest in pure awareness, the non-dual state. Without joy, there can be no bliss. However, this experience of bliss, joy in the heart should not be contrived or sought out. So that's quite the opposite to things like Salung, Trulkor, and Tumo. They seek it, they pursue it. They pursue the blissful states for a particular purpose. This practice is quite different. This is just, we'll do it, will happen, but we don't pursue it. We just rest in joy. We're just relaxing. Whatever rises, rises. Whatever happens, happens. The simplicity of it is profound. And the other thing about it, simplicity, it's a real challenge to our egos. Just doing a simple thing is quite a challenge to the ego, because the ego wants always to be doing the complicated, smart thing. The ego always wants to be smart, wise, accomplished. To do this very simple thing is undermining that quite strong dualistic impulse, So the joy practice also undermines this self-clinging, this grasping to practice. as an attribute of the ego, you know, it undermines that. So that's quite interesting, profound effects. And in terms of, there's a couple of notes here about Dzogchen. So, which is obvious stuff, but I'll read it out. Dzogchen is not something that beginners just step into. It's impossible. Dzogchen can only be reached through the practice of meditation or devotion. The accomplishments of the meditation or devotion stream ripens us for Dzogchen. So the joy practice works to open our hearts completely. And that's essential component to practice Dzogchen, which I said earlier. Joy and devotion softens and lightens our minds so that we can completely let go into the natural radiance of pure awareness. So that's that. All right, so we'll do a little bit of practice. So I'm going to turn my camera off so you don't have to be looking at me while you're doing it. You can visualize your object. So normally we would probably do this, you know, sitting by a window, sitting outside, sitting with our object in front of us because we're all here in front of the computer screen. We'll do it with our eyes closed and we will, you know, visualize our object and we'll go through it that way. So I'll just pop my camera off. So the first step is to get into a comfortable position. So whatever position is comfortable is fine. But the main thing is we want our back to be more or less straight, our spine to be more or less straight. Hands, palms down on knees or thighs. Eyes either open, half-lidded, gently gazing into the space in front of us, or closed. Mouth and tongue are relaxed, with the tongue touching the top palate just behind the teeth, or just resting on the floor of the mouth. Place our awareness very gently on our breath. And just relax. We place our awareness on our chosen object. If we haven't got an object in front of us, we can remember a time in our lives when we felt joy, walking in a forest, sitting at the beach, soaking in some sun, gazing at the sky. Just remember that time and remember how it felt in the body. Just place our awareness gently on the joy as it arises and just relax. Allow the joy to rise and increase naturally, which it will do just by placing our awareness on it. If thoughts come, just let them come and let them go. As with all meditation, we just bring our awareness gently back to our object, which is both the thing that we're using to evoke joy and the joy itself. So if we get distracted, we just bring ourselves back and relax. And then we'll sit in joy for a few minutes. And then we'll pause for a breath. Okay. So after we've sat in joy for a while, we then would do shamatha for 10 minutes or something. We won't do that because watching someone sit in shamatha for 10 minutes on a video is not very exciting. So you may have felt something, you may not. Fine. But if you did feel something, it was likely quite subtle, perhaps barely perceptible. That's normal. That's how it is at the beginning. Over time, if we just let it be, just relax, don't get uptight or stressed about it, don't try and force it, that feeling of joy will rise and be stronger and stronger and stronger. And we don't sort of like, as with meditation, we don't grasp. We just relax with it. Let it be whatever it is. And it will rise, you know? And then we, after we've sat for about 10 minutes in joy, then we go into shamatha. So remember I said these two things feed each other. Joy relaxes the mind, which makes shamatha deeper. Shamatha creates spaciousness in the mind, which means we're more able to perceive the joy, connect with it more quickly. So they're very much hand in hand. And then over time, the other aspects of our true nature will arise naturally. Love, compassion, equanimity. And if we're doing this practice in concert with Guru Yoga, which I would recommend, then we go through a similar sort of progression of heart opening, degrees of open-heartedness, I suppose. So with joy, you know, joy, love, compassion, equanimity, they're degrees of open-heartedness. And likewise with devotion. So it starts with joy, then wonder, then awe, then, I mean, I wonder and awe are synonyms in English, but it's about degrees, you know. Then proper devotion, which is selfless. It's a state of total surrender there. Just open, spacious, open-heartedness. So this flowering will happen naturally. It is not a construction or a fabrication. It is simply getting out of the way, using joy to get out of the way of our constant thinking, feeling, and sensing. And then eventually we can drop the joy practice, and because joy will be everywhere and everything, and we'll be profoundly open-hearted at all times, you know. It is the goal, it is the fruit, and it will happen. It's inevitable. All right, so as I said, if you are Buddhist adjacent or have issues with shamatha, you can just do the joy practice on its own. You can start with, 10 minutes, and then you can increase if you can, and then 10, 20, 30 minutes of joy. I mean, I always think 15 minutes of joy every day should be something that we all do anyway. Something that creates joy every day we should be doing. Creating joy for others every day is something we should be doing. So if we're unable to sit in meditation, if we're unable to do shamatha, joy practice is fine on its own. You can just do that. So there's a pithy instruction for this practice, which is very, very simple, deceptively simple. I'll send it out in the notes, but also if you read the joy article, I did the tricycle, it's in there. And this comes from Togden Amtrin, which is arouse joy and rest in its natural radiance. Not only is this the heart of the path, but indeed is the heart of awakening. So we can repeat that to ourselves as a kind of an aphorism as we move through our day, and it will help us to connect with joy when we're not on the cushion. So stuck in traffic, you can repeat the pith instruction, touch base with the memory of joy, feel the joy rise in our bodies, rest there. It's very, very simple. Wherever we are, we can do this. You know, we do the formal sitting on a cushion or out at the park or wherever, but also it can be done in a few minutes throughout the day. Just quickly connecting with joy. I mean, you need some practice on the cushion to begin with, but once you start to actually be able to connect with the natural radiance of your nature joy, it'll be easy to connect with it in a traffic jam, you know, when someone at work is yelling at you, you know, when the plumbing breaks, you know, just repeat the pith instruction, arouse joy and rest in its natural radiance. Not only is it the heart of the path, but indeed is the heart of awakening. And just connect with that experience of joy, rest in it, you know, 2 minutes. If you do this multiple times throughout the day, that'll be very helpful in the long run. All right, so I will open up to questions. If you want to just pop your hands up if you have a question, and then I'll just call on you and you can ask your question, and then I'll try my best to answer it. We've already got one hand up, which I think might be an accident, which is Wendy. Do you have a question, Wendy? No? Okay. Pop your hands up if you have a question. No questions. Sarah is saying to everyone, the raise hand function is also available under the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen, depending on the version of Zoom that you're using. All right, if we don't have any questions, we can just do a quick dedication and wind up for the day. All right, okay, so dedication. I'm happy to hang around and chat after we finish, if you're more likely to chat once the recording's off. Okay, I'll just do a quick dedication of mine. You can do your own dedication for your own lineage, or just, you know, think, you know, I'm doing this for the sake of sentient beings. I will achieve enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings and help them to achieve enlightenment as well. I'll just do my own little dedication. By this effort, may all beings abide in the bliss of the great perfection. Thank you, everyone.